Very good morning, students. Welcome to science session of class 10, and we are seeing the unit 12 plant anatomy and plant physiology. Now, in the last session, we have seen what is tissue system, and the different types of vascular tissue system, and we have seen the dipod root, monopod root, and the difference between dipod root and the monopod root. A very good morning, students. Welcome to science session for class 10, and we are dealing with the unit 12 plant anatomy and plant physiology. And in this lesson, in the last class, we have seen what is tissue, what is tissue system, different types of vascular tissue system. Hope you remember radial, conjoint, collateral, bicollateral and concentric vascular bundle, and we have also seen the internal structure of dicot root and monocot root. Next we saw the internal structure of dicot stem. With that we have ended that session, isn't it? Now today in this session we are going to continue with this lesson, and in this session we are going to see the internal structure of a monocot stem, and we are going to see the difference between the dicot stem and monocot stem. Then we'll see the internal structure of dicot and monocot leaf. Then we'll see what is the photosynthesis, how the process of the photosynthesis takes place, what is respiration, types of respiration. Let's go into the session, children. Now look into the picture, children. Let's see the internal structure of a monocot stem. Now the outermost layer is the epidermal layer, and it consists of the parenchymatic cells, and this parenchymatic cells is of single layer. You can see the picture which is green in color, isn't it? The outermost layer epidermal, and this consists of the cuticle, that is the waxy coating in the outermost layer. Now stomata, if you see in leaves, it is more in number, but here since it is a stem, the stomatas are less in number. The next one is the hypodermis. Now look into the picture. Below the epidermis you have the hypodermis, isn't it? And this hypodermis consists of few layers of the sclerenchymatic cell and few layers of the chlorenchymatic cells. Now look into the picture. You can see the black color coated cells, isn't it? So those are the sclerenchymatic cells, and the green patches that is appearing in between, that is interrupting these sclerenchymatic tissues, is the chlorenchymatic cells, group of cells, right? Next to the hypodermis is called the ground tissues, that is below the hypodermis. All the tissues that is in the picture is called as the ground tissues, and here you cannot differentiate, isn't it? This is the cortex that extends between the epidermis and endodermis, that is the outermost layer of the vascular bundle, isn't it? You cannot differentiate. Here we are not able to differentiate it, isn't it? So it is not differentiated into endodermis, pericycle, cortex and pith, right? And this vascular bundle, can you see the small skull shaped vascular bundle is scattered in the ground tissues. You can see more than 2 vascular bundles. So these vascular bundles are scattered in the ground tissues. Usually the vascular bundles will be at the center, isn't it? But here it is not so. So what is the type of the vascular bundle? The vascular bundle here, it is conjoint, collateral, end arch, and it is closed. Why it is closed? Because no cambium is present, right? And each vascular bundle is surrounded by few layers of the sclerenchymatic tissues. Can you see here the double layered black cells that is present around the vascular bundle is the sclerenchymatic tissues, and these are called as bundle sheath. Now look into the picture, it is written as bundle sheath, isn't it? So these are the bundle sheaths, that is sclerenchymatic cells that surrounds the vascular bundle. Now we'll talk about the xylem and the phloem that is present inside the vascular bundle. Now you can see the large xylem which is present in a bigger size, and the small cells of the xylems that is present. So the two different sizes of the xylems appears in the vascular bundle, isn't it? So it consists of the metaxylem and the protoxylem. I said that the protoxylem will be smaller in size. These are unmatured cells. And when it matures, it becomes the metaxylem, which is larger in size. I said, isn't it? You can look into the picture, the smaller circles, that is double layered pink cells are written as the protoxylem, isn't it? And the larger one is called as the metaxylem. So it consists of metaxylem and protoxylem, and the xylem vessels are arranged in V or Y shape. Now can you see, look into the picture, 3 vascular bundles are present and it is in the V shape. Let's talk about the phloem. The phloem consists of sieve tubes, is responsible for the transportation of the food. So that tube is called as the sieve tube, and sieve tube is always accompanied by the companion cells, and we have learnt this in 9th standard also. And this phloem will be of the parenchymatic tissue cells, and the phloem fibers are also absent in the monocot stem. And when you see the pith is not at all differentiated in the monocot stem, but it is well differentiated in the dicot stem. Now, having seen the internal structure of dicot stem and monocot stem, now we will be able to differentiate between the dicot stem and monocot stem, isn't it? The first difference is among the hypodermis. Hypodermis, when you see in dicot stem, it is the collenchymatous cells, and here are the sclerenchymatic cells for the monocot stem. And the ground tissues, here it is differentiated, but here it is not differentiated into the cortex, pericycle and pith. All the tissues that is present below the epidermis are called as the ground tissues. Next is the vascular bundle. When you talk about the vascular bundle, there we had 2 vascular bundles that is arranged in the form of a ring, isn't it? But in monocot stem, it is numerous, that is, there are more number of vascular bundles, and the vascular bundles near the epidermis, that is near the end, are smaller in size, and at the center when you come, it is bigger in size, and there it was arranged in rings, and here it is scattered in the ground tissues. Now in the vascular bundles in the dicot is open because the cambium is present, isn't it? We saw the yellow colored cells that is present between the xylem and the phloem, but here in the monocot stem there is no differentiation between the xylem and the phloem, so cambium was absent. Now bundle sheath was absent in the dicot stem, no bundle sheath was present, but here the bundle sheath was present, that is surrounded by, that is the vascular bundles are surrounded by the sclerenchymatic tissues, and we said that these are the bundle sheath. Next, secondary growth is present in the dicot stem, but it is not visible in the monocot stem. Pith was present, isn't it? Now we saw that the pith is present below the vascular bundle, isn't it? But here we cannot differentiate, or there is no pith in the monocot stem. Then medullary rays, that the rays like structure, that is the especially the trunk of the trees, isn't it? You see a nerve like structure, isn't it, in the rays? It will be in the form of rays, isn't it? So those rays will be present in the dicot stem when you cut the trunk of the tree and see, but here it is absent. So this is the difference between monocot stem and dicot stem, and this question is also a very important question. So it may be asked in 2-mark question or in the 4-mark question. Now let's see the internal structure of dicot leaf. Dicot, I said it is 2 cotyledons, consists of 2 cotyledons. Example, you can see mangoes. When you see the seeds of the mango, it consists of 2 cotyledons, isn't it? So that is the example. Let's go into the internal structure of the leaf. Now this leaf structure consists of two epidermis. One is the upper epidermis and the next one is the lower epidermis. You look into the picture, children. You have two epidermis, isn't it? Can you see the picture? And the upper epidermis consists of the cuticle. That is, it is covered with the waxy substance above the upper epidermis, and this upper epidermis is the single layer cell, and these are very closely packed with one another. There is no intercellular space between the parenchymatous cells in the upper epidermis, and the cells are closely packed, isn't it? So the stomatas will be less in number in the upper epidermis. Now, when we talk about the lower epidermis, this also consists of parenchymatous cells, and this also has the cuticle, that is thin layer of cuticle, that is waxy substances. But especially in the lower epidermis, there are numerous stomata, and this helps in the exchange of the gases, and it also prevents the loss of water vapor through this stomata. And you can see the chloroplast that is present in the lower epidermis, especially it is present in the guard cells. Now, in the stomata, we have the guard cell, isn't it, which swells and shrinks so that the stomata opens and closes, isn't it? We have learnt. So, the chloroplast is present only in the guard cells. The next one is the mesophyll. Now, the cells that is present in between the upper epidermis and the lower epidermis to gather all the tissues that is present in between is called as the mesophyll. And this is differentiated into palisade parenchymatic cells and the spongy parenchymatic cells. Now we'll see what is palisade parenchyma. Look into the picture. It is written as palisade parenchyma. It is present below the upper epidermis, isn't it? And you can see these parenchymatic cells are elongated. It is like a tube-like structure, isn't it? So, and you can see the dotted lines on the parenchymatic cells, isn't it? So, these are the chloroplast, and they do not have intercellular space. They are closely packed, and since it consists of chlorophyll, it takes place in the photosynthesis, preparation of food. The next layer is the spongy parenchyma. You can see there is a lot of space in between, isn't it? A lot of intercellular space, isn't it? And the cells are also not in a proper shape. Sometimes it is spherical, some cells are oval, and some cells are in irregular shape. The next one is the vascular bundle that is present as a round ring-like structure in the mid, isn't it? Mostly the vascular bundle of midrib will be larger. Now, you know what is midrib, isn't it? In the leaf, you will have a mid vein, isn't it? So, that is the midrib, and especially the vascular bundle that is present in the midrib will be larger. And look into the picture, children. It is what is the type of vascular bundle? It is conjoined, collateral, and closed, isn't it? Why it is closed? Because there is no cambium in between them. And the vascular bundle is surrounded by the parenchymatic cells, which is called as the bundle sheath. Now, each vascular bundle, now when you look into the vascular bundle, we have to talk about the xylem and the phloem, isn't it? Now, how is the xylem? Xylem is towards the upper epidermis, isn't it? And the phloem is towards the lower epidermis. So, this is the internal structure of dicot leaf. Now, let's see the internal structure of monocot leaf. Now, since it is a leaf, it consists of upper epidermis and lower epidermis, and these epidermis are made up of parenchymatous cells. Now, cuticle is present on the outer wall. You can see, isn't it, the thin grey color coating on the outer wall, that is the epidermis, both the inner and the outer layer, and the stomata is present both on the inner and the outer epidermis. Some of the epidermis are large. Now, I've circled it, isn't it? You can see some cells are larger than the other usual cells, isn't it? So those cells are called as the bulliforms. Next is the mesophyll. Now I have marked using the curly bracket, isn't it? So that complete tissue is called as the ground tissue, which is called as the mesophyll, that is present between the epidermis. Can you see, children? I have marked within curly bracket that complete cells are called as mesophylls. And as in the case of dicot leaf, this is not differentiated into palisade parenchyma or spongy parenchyma, but the cells are irregular, and here in between you can see the intercellular space, and these are helpful in the exchange of gases, and this contains the tiny dot like substances, isn't it, inside the cell? So that is the chloroplast, which helps in the photosynthesis process. Now let's see the vascular bundle. Now you can see three vascular bundle in the picture, isn't it? So the round structure is called as the round structure in the middle is called as the vascular bundle. Now how many vascular bundles are there in this picture? There are three vascular bundle. Now I have circled it and shown it to you. You can see these are the vascular bundles. Now these vascular bundles, sometimes it is small and sometimes it is large. Now on your left hand side you can see the large vascular bundle, isn't it? Now these two vascular bundles on the middle and the right hand side are smaller. So some vascular bundles are large and some vascular bundles are small. Now look into the picture, children. I have marked the bundle sheath. You can see that the circular ring that is around the vascular bundle, you can see I have circled it with blue color, isn't it? So those are the bundle sheath. It is the sheath that surrounds the vascular bundle, and it is made up of parenchymatous bundle sheath. And the vascular bundle, if you see, what type of vascular bundle is that? Now the vascular bundle is conjoined collateral, and it is closed because there is no cambium in between the xylem and the phloem. Now you can see the xylem towards the upper epidermis. Can you see a circular pink color structure? So that is towards the upper epidermis, while the blue color cells are the phloems, which is marked in the picture. It is towards the lower epidermis. So this is about the vascular bundle, and this mesophyll is not differentiated into palisade parenchyma and spongy parenchyma as in the case of dicot leaf. Now this structure is very simple, and see to that you learn about the vascular bundle very thoroughly, because sometimes vascular bundle differentiation between the dicot stem and the monocot stem, or between the dicot root and monocot root, can be asked. Now let's see the difference between the dicot leaf and monocot leaf. The first difference is that the dicot leaf is dorsiventral leaf. I'll show you how the dorsiventral leaves look like. And the monocot leaf is isobilateral leaf. I'll show you the picture so that you can understand what is dorsiventral and isobilateral. Now the differentiation of the mesophyll, if you see, the mesophyll is differentiated into palisade and spongy, isn't it? We have seen some cells are elongated, isn't it? And it has chloroplast. Prominent elongated cells are seen, so that is called as palisade parenchyma in the case of dicot leaf. And after that, below the palisade parenchyma, we have seen the spongy parenchyma, which is in irregular shape. This is differentiated into palisade parenchyma and spongy parenchyma, while the monocot is not differentiated. Now learn the difference between the monocot and dicot leaf thoroughly, because only 2 points are there. This is not the book back question, but sometimes it is asked in some of the question paper. Look into the picture, children. This is about the dicot leaf and monocot leaf. Now you can see the difference in the structure of the leaf. We said that the dicot is dorsiventral and the monocot is isobilateral. So this is the difference. This is how the leaf structure of the leaf of the dicot and the monocot looks. Now with this picture you can understand it much better. This is about the dicot, that is dorsiventral on your left hand side, and on your right hand side is the monocot, which is the isobilateral. You can see the midrib, isn't it? So for example, I can say grass leaf is similar to that of the monocot leaf, and this is the normal leaf that you can see, isn't it? Now you can see the midrib, isn't it? The midrib, that is the mid vein, isn't it? And you have veinlets, which is the branches of the veins. You can see veins in both the leaves and the midribs of both the leaves, and you can identify. So this is about dorsiventral and isobilateral leaf of dicot and monocot respectively. Now let's see what are plastids. Plastids are the double membered layer. It consists of two membranes, inner and outer membrane, and these are found in plants and in some algae that you see in the underwater, isn't it? It is mostly the aquatic, or it can be seen in the fresh waters also. So the organelles that is found in the plant and in some algae, so these are the double membrane bounded organelle, so it is called as plastids, and the function of the plastid is responsible for the preparation and storage of food. And when we talk about the types of plastids, there are three plastids. One is the chloroplast, which will be in green color pigment, we are very familiar with, and this is useful for the preparation or takes place in the photosynthesis process. And the next one is the chromoplast. Chromo means colored, so colored plast. So this will be mostly, it will be in yellow, red, orange color plastids. And the next one is leucoplast. Leuco means colorless, so colorless plastids. So there are three types of plastids. I'll show you the picture, children. Now look into this picture, children. So you can see the picture of chromoplast, chloroplast and leucoplast. Chromo, you can see the orange and the yellow colored plastis, isn't it, inside? So that is called as chromoplast. In the middle picture you can see chloroplast, which has green color pigment, so which is helpful in the photosynthesis process. And the last picture that you see is the leucoplast, which is mostly the colorless plastids. So now you can see the pictures of three types of plastids. Now the chloroplast consists of different parts. Let's see the parts one by one. First is the envelope. The envelope consists of inner and outer membrane, and these are separated by the intermembrane space. You can see here inner membrane and outer membrane, isn't it? So between this inner membrane and outer membrane there is a space, so which is called as the intermembrane space. So there will be a vacant space between the inner and the outer membrane. The next one is the stroma. You can see here, isn't it? In the picture it is written as stroma. The stroma, that is the matrix, the liquid that is present inside the membrane is called as the matrix. And next is the thylakoids. You can see the thylakoids, isn't it? The pillar like structure, and the discs are arranged one above the other, isn't it? So those discs that is arranged one above the other is called as the thylakoids. These thylakoids consist of disc-like structure which is called as grana. Here you can see a singular form that is written as granium, isn't it? So this one single structure is called as granium, and the disc-like structures together is called as the grana. So granum is arranged one above the other, isn't it? So you can see in the picture. Now this grana are interlinked through an interconnection membrane. Can you see these are interconnected? Now in this structure you can see a tube like structure that connects each grana, isn't it? So those are called as Fred channels. So the chloroplast consists of the envelope, which is the inner and the outer membrane, and these two membrane have space in between, so it is called as the inner membrane space. Then next is consist of stroma. Stroma is present inside the chloroplast, which is the matrix that is present, and it consists of DNA, ribosomes and other molecules that is required for the photosynthesis process, or especially the protein synthesis. The next one is the thylakoids, and these thylakoids consist of disc-like structures. Together it is called as grana, and the single disc-like structure is called as the granum. And this grana, as in cylinder, as in whole part, it is connected with one another by an connected membrane, which is called as the French channels. Next we'll see what is photosynthesis process. You know about photosynthesis process and we have learnt in 9th standard. Let's have a quick revision of what is photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, photo means light and synthesis is to build, isn't it? So photosynthesis is a process in which the food is prepared. Now how it is prepared? By utilizing the chlorophyll that is present in the chloroplast. In the autotrophic organisms, what are autotrophic organisms? Green plants and algae, which consist of the chlorophyll. So it prepares the food using the chlorophyll. Now this converts the sunlight to synthesis their own food. Now in this process the carbon dioxide combines with oxygen in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, which is the essential component to form the carbohydrate, which is the food. Now this reaction that you are seeing in the screen is a very familiar reaction. So because we have learnt this reactions very thoroughly in 9th standard. So the carbon dioxide and water in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll gives C6H12O6, which is carbohydrates, that is glucose, and with the emission of oxygen and water. So this is the photosynthesis reaction. Now where it occurs, actually the photosynthesis, it occurs in green plants, that is autotrophic organisms, such as in the parts of the plant it occurs in leaf, stem, and in the floral bud. In bud also it occurs. Now let's see the photosynthesis pigment. We said that the chlorophyll is the pigment, which is the green pigment, which is responsible for the photosynthesis process. Let's go in detail about the pigments. Now the pigments that is involved in photosynthesis process is called as the photosynthetic pigments, and these are of two types. One is the primary pigment, the other one is the accessory pigment. Now chlorophyll A is the primary pigment and chlorophyll B and carotenoid are the accessory pigments. I'll repeat, children. Chlorophyll A is the primary pigment and chlorophyll B and carotenoid are the accessory pigments. Now what is this primary pigments, that is chlorophyll, does? Now what it does is that it traps the solar energy and it converts it into chemical energy, right? So the conversion of the solar energy into chemical energy is done by the primary pigment, that is chlorophyll A. And the next one, that is the accessory pigment, which is the chlorophyll B and carotenoid, observes this energy and it involves in the photosynthesis process. So the reaction center, that is chlorophyll A, and the accessory pigment, which is called as the harvesting center, together it is called as photosystem. So the photosystem consists of two centers, which is called as the reaction center and the harvesting center. Now we are going to see in detail the role of the photosynthesis, the entire process of photosynthesis that is taking place in the chloroplast. Now this chloroplast, this process, actually the process of photosynthesis consists of two processes. One was the light dependent photosynthesis reaction, which is called as the light reaction or the Hill reaction, actually, because it is discovered by Robin Hill. The next one is the light independent reaction, which is called as the biosynthetic phase, and it is also called as Calvin cycle. So these are the two processes that we are going to see in the entire process of photosynthesis that takes place inside the chloroplast. So look into the screen, children. So these are the two reactions that takes place in the entire process of photosynthesis. The first one is the Hill reaction or light reaction or light dependent reaction. The next one is called as the dark reaction, light independent reaction or biosynthetic process, or it is also called as Calvin cycle. Now let's see the first process, that is the Hill reaction or light reaction. Now it is called as Hill reaction because it is discovered by Robin Hill, and this takes place especially in the thylakoid membrane. We have seen the grana, isn't it? The disc-like structures that are arranged one above the other is called as grana, isn't it? So this light reaction takes place in the thylakoid membrane, that is grana of the chloroplast. Now the photosynthetic pigment, that is chlorophyll A, observes the light energy and convert it into chemical energy. Now in this process, there are the products that is obtained, which is called as ATP and NADPH, ADP and NAD. Now we'll see what is this one by one. Now look into the picture, children. You can see, isn't it, ATP, NADPH, which is written in capital letter, ADP and NADP, isn't it? Now we'll see the abbreviations of this. Now this is converted into chemical energy, isn't it? So these are the chemicals that has been converted, and these products of the chemical reaction move into the that is, it is prepared in the thylakoid, isn't it? So from the thylakoid to the stoma, that is into the matrix of the chloroplast. Now let's see the abbreviation of these products, that is ATP, ADP, NAD and NADP. ATP is nothing but adenosine triphosphate. Now let's see the abbreviations of the products, that is ATP, NADP, ADP and NADP. Now let's see the abbreviations of these products. The first one is ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. Next is ADP, adenosine diphosphate. Next is NAD, that is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. The next one is NADP, that is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. So these are the products obtained from the light dependent reaction. Now this will move from the thylakoid into the stroma, that is the matrix of the chloroplast. The next one is the dark reaction, which is called as the biosynthetic phase or the light independent reaction, because it doesn't need the light to carry out the reaction. So the second step, it is called as the dark reaction. Now this will take place in the stroma, because the products of the light dependent reactions enters into the stroma, isn't it? Now during this reaction, the carbon dioxide is reduced into carbohydrate with the help of the all the products that is obtained in the light reaction process, and this is called as the Calvin process, and this takes place in the absence of light, so it is called as the dark reaction. So the input here will be only the carbon dioxide, and it uses the products that is obtained from the light reaction, and the entire process of the light independent reaction takes place. This two process is interlinked because the products of the light reaction is observed by the Calvin's process, that is used in the Calvin's process by the absorption of carbon dioxide, and the result, that the end product, will be glucose, water and the release of oxygen takes place. Now let's see the factors that affects the photosynthesis. There are two factors. It is divided into two factors actually, the internal factors and the external factors. Internal factors is nothing but the pigment. If the pigment secretion is not proper, then it may affect the leaf age also. When the leaf becomes older, then the photosynthesis process may get affected. Then accumulation of carbohydrates, too much of carbohydrates that has been accumulated in the leaf also affect. Then hormone secretion, depending upon the hormone secretion, it also affects the photosynthesis process. When you talk about the external factor, the light, the availability of the light, because especially in the Calvin's process, the absorption of carbon dioxide is very important. So carbon dioxide temperature should be at proper condition, because in the first reaction the light energy is required. Water circulation in the plant should also be in a proper amount, and the mineral elements that is present in the plant should also be adequate, so that the entire process of photosynthesis takes place in a good way. So these are the internal factors and the external factors of the photosynthesis process. Now next we'll see about mitochondria. The picture that you see on the screen is the mitochondria. Now we know that the mitochondria is called as the powerhouse of the cell, and you look into the picture, it consists of the two membranes, isn't it? The inner membrane and the outer membrane. You can see that the outer membrane is a smooth one and the inner membrane is folded, isn't it? It is folded inward. Now this outer membrane is the freely permeable membrane, so it can allow the particles, the smallest particles or the molecules to pass through it. And this outer membrane consists of enzymes, proteins and lipids. Lipids are nothing but fats, and it also contains a molecule which is called as the poron molecules, which is nothing but the protein molecules. And now the inner membrane is a folded one, isn't it? You can see, and now this is folded inside, and the folding junction is called as the cristae. You can see in the picture that is written as cristae, isn't it? So that is the folding membrane, and here and there you can see a green color circle, isn't it, which is called as the ribosomes, and you can see thread-like structure which is purple in color is called as the DNA, and the inner membrane consists of a matrix that is filled with the entire portion, and in the middle, can you see here, oxysomes, it is written as oxysome, isn't it? So this is also an internal structure that is present in the inner mitochondria. So this inner mitochondria, it is in the shape of an racket, isn't it? Tennis racket shaped. So this is called as oxysomes, and this involves in the ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate synthesis. And let's see in detail about the cristae, and let me show you the structure of oxysomes. Now the cristae is the finger-like projection that is present in the inner membrane, and the cristae is the finger-like projection that is the folded inside, isn't it, in the inner membrane. Why it is folded inside is to increase the inner surface area of the mitochondria, because it has to hold variety of enzymes, proteins and lipids. Now especially it is very rich in the enzymes, that is the inner mitochondrial membrane, and it consists of 80% of protein and lipids, which is nothing but the fat. Now in the picture you can see the structure of oxysome, and is racket shaped particles, and this is also called as F1 particles, and you can see it has three parts, isn't it? F0 base, that is the base of this, and again you can find a stalk, and above it an head-like structure which is called as the F1 head or F1 particles. And the function of this oxysomes is they involve in the ATP synthesis. They are the main part which is very important for the ATP synthesis, that is adenosine triphosphate synthesis. When we talk about the functions, we said that it is called as the powerhouse of the cell. Why? Because it involves in the ATP synthesis, or otherwise it is also called as ATP factory for the cell, because they produce large number of ATP molecules. So this also helps in maintaining the calcium ions in the cell, and it regulates all the metabolic activities of the cell. The metabolic activities is that each organelle has its own function, isn't it? So those activities of the cell is called as the metabolic activities. So this helps to regulate the metabolic activities of the cell. Now let's see about the respiration and types of respiration. Now, what is respiration? We know that respiration is just the exchange of gases that takes place in an organism, isn't it? Now, for example, we breathe in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide, isn't it? Now, plants obtain oxygen from the environment and release the carbon dioxide and water vapor, isn't it? This type of exchange of gases between the organisms and the external environment is called as the external respiration. So this is about external respiration because the exchange of gases takes place with the external environment. Now there is another type of respiration which is called as cellular respiration. Now what is this cellular respiration? It is a biochemical process in which the food is converted into energy, right? Now we respire, so that is the external respiration, but the food that we intake has to be converted into energy for us to do work, isn't it? So that conversion is called as biochemical process and it takes place in the cells and it is called as cellular respiration. And photosynthesis takes place, so plants take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen due to the photosynthetic process. But during night time, when cellular respiration takes place, it takes in oxygen and convert the glucose into carbon dioxide, water and energy is released. So this type of respiration is called as the cellular respiration. There are two types of respiration. First one is called as the aerobic respiration and the next one is the anaerobic respiration. Now let's see what is aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration is one which takes place in presence of oxygen. It needs oxygen. Now with the help of oxygen, the food is converted into carbon dioxide, water and energy. So that type of respiration in which the oxygen is utilized is called as aerobic respiration and it takes place in most of the plants and animals. Now anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration takes place without the presence of oxygen. It doesn't need oxygen for the conversion of the glucose, that is C6H12O6, into ethanol and or it can be lactate. Now when you talk about ethanol, the conversion from glucose to ethanol takes place in plants and in some bacteria the conversion of glucose into lactate. And here also carbon dioxide is released and the glucose is converted into ethanol and energy is released in the form of ATP. The difference between the aerobic and anaerobic is that it takes place in presence of oxygen, that is aerobic, and if it takes place in the absence of oxygen, then it is anaerobic. We are going to deal in detail with the stages of aerobic respiration. There are three different stages, so we are going to see the stages one by one of the aerobic respiration. Now look into the picture, children. There are three stages in aerobic respiration. The first stage is that you can look into the picture, the three different stages. Now the first one is the glycolysis. So that is the first stage, glycolysis, in the sense glucose splitting. The next one is the Krebs cycle. Now you can see in the picture, in the middle you can see Krebs cycle, isn't it? So that is the second stage. And the last stage is the electron transport chain. Glycolysis is the sense splitting, breaking down of the glucose into pyruvic acid. Now where it takes place? Where exactly it takes place? It takes place in the cytoplasm. In the cell we have cytoplasm, isn't it? So this is where the glycolysis takes place. And the first stage, that is the glycolysis, is common for both the aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. In both the process, in both the type of respiration, the first step is the glycolysis. The next one is the Krebs cycle. Now in this cycle, only in the matrix the Krebs cycle takes place. So the pyruvic acid, two molecules of pyruvic acid enters into the mitochondria. Now after entering into the mitochondria, oxidation of pyruvic acid takes place and that is converted into carbon dioxide and water. This Krebs cycle is also called as tricarboxylic acid cycle, TCA. Why it is called as tricarboxylic acid cycle? Because the conversion of pyruvic acid into carbon dioxide and water takes place in a sequence. Now there are conversion of the pyruvic acid into various compounds, and at the last the carbon dioxide and the water is released. So the product that is obtained is the citric acid, and this citric acid consists of 3 carboxylic acid, so it is called as tricarboxylic acid chain. Now the next process is the electron transport chain or electron transport system. Now this is carried out in the inner mitochondria. You have seen an folded structure, isn't it? There it takes place. And now here in this, the molecules, that is NADH2 and FADH2. What is NAD? Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. And what is FAD? Flavin adenine dinucleotide. And this is formed during the glycolysis process and the Krebs cycle, isn't it? This gets oxidized to NAD plus and FAD plus, and since the oxidation takes place, it releases the energy, and energy is released in the form of electrons. And these electrons, when it moves from one system to another system, now we said about the photosystem, isn't it? There are two photosystems, photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. So when they pass through the photosystem, the energy released is trapped by the ADP. Now what did I say for ADP? ADP is nothing but adenosine diphosphate, isn't it? This ADP absorbs this energy for the synthesis of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. And in this process, what happens is that these electrons are absorbed by the oxygen and it gets reduced into water. So this is how the carbon dioxide and water is released, and the energy in the form of ATP in the aerobic respiration. Now when we talk about the anaerobic respiration, now here the glucose is converted into ethanol, carbon dioxide, energy, isn't it? The energy released in the form of ATP is more in the aerobic respiration than in the anaerobic respiration. Let's see what is respiratory quotient. Look at the picture, children. RQ is nothing but the respiratory quotient. It is the formula which gives the ratio between the volume of carbon dioxide that is liberated divided by the volume of oxygen that is consumed. So the respiratory quotient is the ratio and the formula is given. So this is how the respiratory quotient is calculated. Now with this we come to the end of this lesson, and when you see from the beginning, we have seen what is tissue system, different types of vascular tissue system, dicot root, monocot root, dicot stem, monocot stem, and we have seen the differences also between the dicot and monocot root. Next we have seen about the dicot leaf and monocot leaf. Then we saw what are the process that is involved in that is photosynthesis. Next the mitochondria, and at the last we have seen the respiratory quotient. And with this we end this lesson. Your homework for today is take page number 181, and there you will have the role of sunlight and photosynthesis, where you have two processes. The first one is the light dependent photosynthesis, that is Hill reaction, and the other one is the biosynthetic phase or the Calvin cycle. So learn these two processes and try to write it in a rough note and check it by yourself, so that this process becomes very clear to you. And this is a very important question. See to that you also copy these two processes in your classwork, and try to submit the classwork in the school office on Friday, so that it will be corrected and given back to you. Take care, children. Let's see in the next session. Thank you.